amazing it is to have a pastor say, okay, buddy, you're on. And he gives you his pulpit, and you're an ex-felon. You know what that means? You know, this is one of the early churches that I spoke at in my ministry. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And as I was doing this work, I never felt that I was giving my all for what Jesus Christ means to me. I never felt like I hit that home run that I wanted to always do. And about 2.5 years ago, I was praying, and it came upon me to share what I'm going to share with you this morning. I'm not going to call it a home run. What I am going to say is, I'm going to tell you what Jesus Christ means to me this morning from the depths of my heart. So I don't forget this, regarding coming back at 7:30 sharp. 7:30 sharp? Okay, bad pun. If you've been thinking about bringing somebody to this church, and you want to make sure that they're going to have a really blessed time and be glad that you brought them, I promise you that's my job tonight. I want to grow our church. I want people to be aware of what's going on. And so I'll be sharing whales and dolphins and sharks. I once accidentally jumped in the water 6 feet from a 17.5-foot long great white shark. I have that on film. I have it on film. I set the world speed record a couple of seconds later for swimming 8 feet with flippers. And I got inside of the world's first all-plastic shark cage, and the shark came up and she hugged it. We were eyeball to orb. As she was trying to remove my head, I could take that same head, and because of the warp of the cylinder, I could lean forward and look down her throat. Okay, I'm going to share that tonight. I'm going to share about Fiji. What a wonderful work we have going on in Fiji. And you're going to love seeing the work with the kids and everything else. I'm going to be working in to all of this a little bit about toxins and pollutants, because you see, we're so exposed we don't even know. Unless you really research it, unless you have the experience, we're exposed all the time. And it's causing learning disorders in children, behavioral disorders. It leads to depression. Depression leads to suicide. In 2005, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, declared suicide among teenagers epidemic. It became the number one killer of teenagers. It is now the number one killer of Americans. It took my brother, okay? Number two killer is accidents. And when you think of accidents, we often think of DUI, but now you have to start thinking about texting, because people are driving where they're not paying attention to what they're doing, and it's the number two killer in America. Number three is unintentional poisoning. What's that? Drug overdose. Drug overdose. This is a tough time to be a young person growing up in America. It's a tough time to be a parent in America. It's a tough time to be a grandparent raising kids in America. This is just plain tough. Now, when I was a kid growing up, my dad was abusive, and I was scared to death of him. And when my mom came home and told me at the age of 14 that he would not be coming home anymore, this was really good news. I wanted a father, but for the first time, I could go into my house and not be terrified when Dad came home. That was huge. It was really big news to me. I wanted a father in my life. In fact, you know who I wanted to be my father? I wanted Ronald Reagan. Yeah, really. I kind of hoped I'd grow up and look like him one day. Death Valley days, 20 Mule Team Boron with Ronald Reagan. I mean, he was like my hero. I graduated from high school. By the way, my credentials, I graduated at the very top of the lower third of my class. Okay. By the way, tonight, she's not here right now. I left my daughter in Sacramento. I'm not going to be here for potluck. Please excuse me. I always stay for potluck. I love to eat. I left my daughter, and I have to go collect her. She'll be here tonight. She has a braided blonde hair down to here. So she's a wonderful, wonderful kid. She just graduated valedictorian this year. So only one in the class. Like, cool. And so don't tell her I told you. No, actually do, because she gets mad at me. And I love it when she's mad at me. You know, this is great, wonderful. I have 3 kids. One thing I told my kids a long time ago is that how can I expect you to respect me if I don't respect you? And so I really look up to my 17-year-old son. He just turned 17 earlier this month. He's 6'5" plus. I really look up to him. Anyway, I have two great daughters who you get to meet one if you come back at 7:30, but if you don't come back, you're not going to get to meet her. Okay? Anyway, I joined the Navy because I wanted to be a diver for Jacques Cousteau was my childhood dream. And I thought I'd become a Navy diver because we didn't have much money, so I became a Navy diver. And I joined Navy bomb disposal teams, bomb disposal. And I was a chief petty officer, I made rank of chief, and I was a chief in charge of EOD Mobile Unit 1, Team 11. People didn't know what EOD was now, and almost everybody knows EOD now because of IEDs, improvised explosive devices. And I had a wonderful naval career, and I ruined it. I felt so bad. I was so foolish. I was so stupid. I was learning to surf, and I had friends who were smoking marijuana. They were smoking marijuana. What did I start doing? Smoking marijuana. You know that things like cigarettes and alcohol and marijuana are gateway drugs to other drugs. And you know these things, they corrupt your mind, and they ruin who you are. You gotta. Nancy Reagan said, "Just say no." I think it has to go further than that. We have to want to say no to drugs, and yes to what is right and what is good. I've been speaking lately a lot to foster youth because foster youth have a high incidence of suicide. And I'm pleased to tell you that in September, I'll be the keynote speaker for the Foster Youth Convention for the state of California. You know, foster youth have it pretty tough. I was talking to two foster youth, and one said, "Hey, what are you worth?" And he said, "Well, I'm worth $340 a month." And the other one said, "What are you worth?" He says, "Well, I'm worth over $500." He says, "I'll get there." You know what they're talking about? The more trouble you get in, the more of a troubled youth you are, the more your sponsor family gets. So they've just been told their value, and how do they increase their value? You know, it's not easy being a kid at any point in time. It's not easy being a parent. And now grandparents, I'm turning up, I'm a senior citizen just about a couple more months. I'll be 65, but I'm discovering what this stuff is about. But wow, you know, being a grandparent and having to raise your kids and their kids at the same time gets pretty challenging, doesn't it? See, I see a lot of this. This is tough times. You know that what is the fastest growing rate of incarceration in the state of California? What group of people are we arresting at a greater rate than any other group in the state of California? The fastest growing rate of incarceration per capita is teenage girls. Did I surprise you? You know that California has more inmates than the countries of France, Germany, the Netherlands, and Japan combined, and we spend more on incarceration than they do? Something's wrong. Something's really, really wrong. I have so much to share, and we only have so much time. And so I'll be careful with your time. I'll be careful. Because of marijuana, I ruined a naval career. It ended a naval career that I loved. And I got out of the Navy. I went to college. I went to San Diego State. I majored in prerequisites. I'm not kidding. I figured there's a reason why they want you to know this stuff. And a guy hired me, and this was a man I had known earlier in life, 7 years earlier. And, you know, I was struggling looking for a dad. And so this was like a father figure for me. He was a genius, aviation genius. And I didn't know it, but he lost his companies in a divorce. And so to get his money back, he became a drug smuggler. I didn't know this when he hired me, but he knew that I had a marijuana problem. And so he hired me, and he said, "Steve, I look upon you as one of my sons." Well, I didn't know that he had involved his sons in drug smuggling. Rather than tell you about it, if you're ready on the DVD, just hit play. Here's my story by NBC. Runs about 3.5 minutes. I should have warned Keith that I was going to say hit play. One of the neat things, there we go.
Down in the blue water of the South Pacific, Steve Arrington is that close to disaster. And he's as happy as a man can be. Eye to eye with a great white shark. He's a man redeemed.
I'm a very lucky person. What I've been through, I've experienced something that a lot of people don't get the chance to do. And because I've seen the shadowed side of the world, it makes me appreciate the light that's out there.
Once upon a time, Steve Arrington was a young Navy golden boy, a frogman, a bomb disposal expert, officer material. Then one day he was caught selling marijuana, and he was out of the Navy and on the beach, and fell into the drug business. Was drawn like a fly to the web, found himself running cocaine for the Medellin cartel. He was faced with a choice: drive the car with the coke inside, or die. And so began his brief brush with notoriety. is a footnote in a worldwide publicity frenzy.
The conspiracy was allegedly hatched between the auto tycoon and two other men.
Arrington was arrested in Los Angeles by agents closing in on the John DeLorean case.
A man leaped out of the darkness as he opens the door, and he jams a 38 special alongside my head, and he told me, "Move and die." And I thought it was a ripoff, and I thought I was about to die. And the next words that he said were the greatest words I've ever heard in my life. He said, "DEA, federal agent, you're under arrest." Suddenly, I felt a burden had been lifted from my shoulders. I wasn't arrested. I was saved.
He was sentenced to 5 years in a federal penitentiary. Arrington's life had hit bottom.
You live in a cell like this. The cell is from here to here. You can stretch your arms out and touch both walls. I knew that I had to live with this, and I had a goal. I wanted to do things like this.
But inside, he made himself a promise that no kid would ever come to a place like this if Arrington could prevent it. And now, with missionary zeal, he talks to students, scouts, anybody who will listen about the ugly world on the wrong side of the law.
Prison is about fear. Everybody's afraid. The really big, gnarly, bad-looking dude, he's afraid. And people get murdered. You know, they don't need a reason for somebody to kill you in prison. Somebody can have you killed for 2 cartons of cigarettes in prison. 2 cartons of cigarettes. Value of somebody's life in prison.
Do they listen? Yes. Enthralled.
Was it easy starting it over?
Okay, was it easy starting my life over? Very good question. I walk up, or somebody's going to hire me, let's say, I walk up and I say, I'm an ex-felon. Do they want to hire me? Do you want to have me living next door? Do you want me dating your sister? Yes or no? No. No, it's a definite no.
Until he asked the Cousteau Society, which decided that an old Navy frogman who had seen the worst of man would be perfect to study the world of sharks. This month he is in the South Pacific, staring down jaws, and, as we say, redeemed.
I call this slide freedom. This is the type of things I thought about for my jail cell.
Keith Morrison, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And pause or stop, because we're done with the DVD. Okay. Still stopping? It's okay. I love what I do. I work for Jesus Christ. I love that. You have no, oh man, you know, ex-felon, I mean, you know, when you've really, really fallen, wow. I do not have time this morning to tell you my whole story. I don't have that much time. You don't want me to take that much of your time to do that. I'm going to tell you a piece of my story, okay? I have books and videos that tell it all, but I want to focus on the God part, okay? Now, to get there, what happened is I went to work for a man in an aviation company, and he's a cocaine transporter. I didn't know it. When he revealed what he was doing, I said no. There were 3 men in the room, actually 4, 3 had guns, and they said it's very simple. It's called silver or lead. You get in that plane over there and you co-pilot it to Colombia and you come back with cocaine, or we're going to put a bullet in your head. And I was terrified. I lost control of my life. They next ordered me to drive a car from Florida to They ordered me to drive a car from Florida to California full of cocaine. I'm in a parking lot in Florida with all these Colombians with guns. It's really scary. And I get in this car, and I start to drive it across. I'm going to drive it across the United States. And as I start to drive, I turn on the radio. You see, I'm scared to death. I've been with guys with guns. I got cocaine in the car. I don't know what's going on in my life. I need a distraction. I turn on the radio. Can I see the very first PowerPoint image, please? And President Ronald Reagan is on the radio announcing the war on drugs. Now, war on who? Me. Who's this? This is the father I wanted to have. He was my commander-in-chief in the Navy. October 14th, 1982 is when he announced the war on drugs. Boy, this hit me right between the eyes. As I drove this car across the United States, I realized I could not deliver it. I called my boss up when I got to California. I parked it at an airport parking lot. I said, I've quit. I'm walking away. Men with guns took me back to the car. I thought they were going to kill me. And then suddenly I see a dozen more men come running at the car with more guns. One of them slams a pistol alongside my head. He yelled, "Move and die," which really gets your attention. And then another one jams a shotgun in my chest, and he says, put your hands up. Now think about that. Move and die, put your hands up. What do? I put my hands halfway up. Put them on the steering wheel. They were shaking so bad. And then they said the greatest words they could have yelled. They yelled, "Federal agents, dirtbag, you're under arrest." I was not arrested. I was saved from a life that was out of control. I was a co-defendant in the John DeLorean drug trial, which was massive news back at that time, 30 years ago. It was massive news. And my mom found out that I was arrested watching TV. By the way, I told you a little bit about my father. I'll tell you a little bit about my mom. I won't get carried away with this. She wants nothing to do with us or my family. She thinks my wife is the worst hostess in the whole world. She visited us once, and she said my wife was the worst hostess in the whole world and should never come back. 2 weeks later, my wife gave birth to the daughter I'm going to bring here tonight. She was that pregnant, and she thought my wife was a horrible hostess. Anyway, she told me, "I'll never step across your threshold again, and don't you step across mine." And I wanted her to meet the grandchildren, but she never wanted to do that. It's just amazing, the family I grew up in. So I know what foster youth are going through to an extent. I know what it's like to be a kid who's maybe not wanted very much. Anyway, when I went to prison, I deserved it. And I decided to become a partner to the Department of Corrections because their job was to correct me, and I wanted to correct me. And I started reading the Bible. I had been introduced to Christianity in my family, but we only went to church as Southern Baptists 2 or 3 times a year, Christmas, Easter, that was it. But I had been introduced to Christ, and I wanted to know him in prison. And a couple months after I was arrested, I got down and I started to pray, and I got an answer. Now, when I got an answer, I didn't hear anything. I felt something explode in my heart. And here was my prayer. I said, "Father, I am so sorry. I have thrown my life away. Society has locked me up. Friends and family have turned their back on me. But what about you? Are you there for a sinner like me, a felon in a prison cell?" And just like that, this word exploded in my heart. The word was always, and it filled me up, and it changed my life in a heartbeat. Father, are you there for a sinner like me, a felon in a prison cell? Always. It did not take my problems away. I was facing up to 45 years in prison. I was the first one sentenced, and so the prosecutor wanted to completely nail me. The judge saw what I did, and he gave me 5 years. And I had asked him for 5. Are you ready for that? I asked for 5 years in prison. I asked for that. It's court record. And he gave me what I asked for. And off I went into the prison system. And then after 18 months, I was transferred to Boron Prison Camp because I made it up into the honor dorm so quickly at Terminal Island Prison. It was very, very fast. And so when I got to Boron they call it, the Mojave Desert, when I got there, the unit manager assigned jobs. And this was a redneck who hated inmates, and he was in charge of our rehabilitation. You got that combination? And when I reported in, he had my file, and he said, "Inmate Arrington, it says here that you were a model inmate at Terminal Island." He says, "Look, you're a big house inmate, and you're always trouble. You give me the most trouble. And I know the only reason they called you a model inmate is because you didn't get caught, because you're doing stuff. But since you didn't get caught, I'll let you pick your job. Do you want to be a plumber or dishwasher?" These were 2 choice jobs. Dishwasher, you got extra food. I was a vegetarian. Extra food is important when you wash the dishes, right? Pots and pans, really. Plumber paid 17 cents an hour. That was big-time wages in the prison, okay? But I told him I want to be an inmate fireman. He said, "What?" I said, "Fire." He said, "No, I heard what you said, but look," he said, "you can be a plumber or a dishwasher, not a fireman." I said, "But I want to be a fireman." He said, "No, you shut up." He said, "The fireman position's an honor position because at this camp, we're really unique as far as fire crews. Our fire crew has a fire truck, and they get to leave the prison to save lives. But you have to be in the honor dorm to earn that. That means you have to be here 18 months, and you're getting out in 18 months, and you're a troublemaker, and so you're a plumber, and get out of my office." And all I wanted to do for the rest of my life was good work. And so I prayed about this, and then I went to see the unit manager, and I prayed big time. And anybody who's looking for a job, think about what the intent of what I'm talking about here. I went to see the unit manager, and I said, "Sir," I said, "look, I deserve to be in prison. I deserve to be here. I'm trying to, Department of Corrections, I'm trying to correct my behavior. I'm a Christian. I want to do nothing but good works for the rest of my life." I said, "You get a fire truck there that saves lives. What could I do that's more important than that?" Let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm an EMTD, emergency medical technician diver. Okay, I know first aid, all right? I'm a machinist mate chief. I know how to repair that truck. Bomb disposal guy. I know how to lead men in emergencies. I've done this. But the bottom line is this. I'll be the best inmate fireman you've ever seen. I'll be the first one here every day. I'll be the last one to leave. I'll always have a smile on my face. I'll get along with everybody. I'll polish the truck. I'll repair the truck. I'll polish the toilet. During times of danger, I'll be the first one in, or if you need backing up, I'll be there. If you need somebody standing tall beside you, that would be me, and I will get along with everybody in this shop because I want to be an inmate fireman more than anything else right now in the whole world. And 1 week later, I was an inmate fireman. And I went, wow. And for 2 months, I was with the fire crew. And I'll never forget that after 2 months, the chief engineer of the fire crew, he's getting out of prison. He's getting out. That's a scary day for an inmate, getting out of prison, because life is hurling at you, and it's a whole new life, and you maybe aren't prepared. And over 70% of the people who get out of prison go back. 70% go back. 95% of the people who go to prison get out, so we need to be concerned about them. Of the 95% that gets out, 70% goes back. Okay? So anyway, he's getting out, and he comes and he shakes everybody's hand, and he shook my hand last, and he kind of looked at me, and I kind of looked at him. I didn't know what it was all about, but he looked, and then he walked away. And then the senior fireman, because you see, we hung our helmets and such. We hung these by where we stood, and by when we got into the fire crew, and the senior fireman goes up and he takes this helmet down. It's not this helmet, but a helmet just like it. This is Lloyd Logan's helmet. If you know Lloyd Logan, he gave this to me. Okay, and I told him I'd put it to work, and that's what I'm going to do right now, because this is where you're going to find out what Jesus means to me. And he went down and he got the chief engineer's helmet and he took it off the peg of the chief engineer's, and he walked all the way down to my peg, the new guy, and he hung the chief engineer's helmet from my peg, because you see the crew chose their chief engineer. And then they all walked past me into the firehouse, and as they walked past me, the last guy said, you know, I've never heard Arrington silent before. And they made me chief engineer of Inmate Engine Company 52. Now, I need to tell you what this meant to me, what this truly meant to me. You see, prison is supposed to be about being bored and being scared, but it's this incredible amount of boredom. I mean, it's just can be horrible. And my life was changed. But you see, next image, please. I got to show you a couple things here. I missed a couple images. I should have shown you that. This was the day after I was arrested. Who's on the front cover? Ronald Reagan. You see that? You see him there? There's John DeLorean in the bottom. Next image, please. There I am now. The day after that, they caught us all. They had all of us up there on the newspaper. Next image, please. How many of you would like to drive this? Wouldn't that be cool? Next image, look at this. It was not that truck. It was a 1948 Mack fire truck that we drove. Next image. And you're going to see the engineering station. There it is. There's the engineering. Isn't that cool? But I still haven't quite hit it like I really want to hit it. What did it mean for me to be a fireman? I need you up here. I don't know why I'm picking you. You see, kind of stand right here. What's your name? Calvin. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What do you do for a living?
I build roof trusses and sell roof trusses.
Okay, and those are your kids?
Those are my kids.
All right. If you saw he and I walking down the street, okay, but I'm wearing an inmate uniform. I'm on one side of the street, he's on the other. I'm wearing an inmate uniform, inmate number, it says inmate all over it. What are you going to do? You're going to cross to his side of the street, right? Okay. If you saw him walking down the street, just walking down the street, would you say, hey, you, want to come over for dinner? Can I buy you dinner? I'm going to change. What's your name again?
Calvin.
Calvin. I'm going to remember that now, Calvin. I'm going to change him before your very eyes, okay? You see, a police officer is a hero, unless you see the red light in your rearview mirror. You know, a physician's a hero, full on. But a little less so when you get the bill in the mail, you know. Wow, okay? But a fireman is always a hero. You know what you're about to do, okay? Half the time I put this on, half the time I pick on somebody. Okay, and these go like this. See how they just kind of snap?
I've had them on.
You've had them on? I had that feeling. Why did I know that? Why? Okay, all right. Now, normally I'd have you put this on your head. I'm going to do something completely different. I just want you to put it under your arm. Just put it on your arm. Just kind of, however you want to do that. Okay, if you saw him in a restaurant, would you buy him dinner? Would you invite him home to your house? Okay, you stay like that for a minute. Okay, I'm going to come back to you. What does Jesus Christ mean to me? Book of Isaiah. Chapter 61. Yeah, I'll read it to you. You don't have to dig it up, okay? Verse 10. I delight greatly in the Lord. My soul rejoices in my God, for he has clothed me in garments of salvation and arrayed me in a robe of righteousness. Amen. When we get to heaven, that's what we want. We want that robe of righteousness, right? As an inmate, he robed me with the uniform of a hero. Do you know what it meant to me to put this on, to wear this? I was facing 45 years in prison. I had always wanted to be a good person. I had always looked upon myself as being a nice guy. And I wound up becoming a drug smuggler and a felon and going to prison. And Jesus Christ gave me this. Amen? Okay. All right. You can take that off now. But I want to pass the helmet around. Okay? You want to? This is a classic helmet. It's called the Rose helmet. And you just lay it there. You don't have to put it back on there. Unless anybody want to handle the jacket? It's heavy. You ever see, Dad? Next image, please. Most inmates, this is your world. You get your 1 hour of sunshine. These guys are getting their 1 hour of sunshine outside their cell. Next image, please. This is what I joined. A fraternity of firefighters. Men, I think there's other people. Anybody else want to see the jacket? Besides the kids? Anybody want to see? It's cool. Okay. We'll be close. It'll be right there. All right. Next image, please. There I am in prison. I fogged the faces of the other guys. That's me. Okay. In prison. Politician. There. Oh, okay. It's all right. The walk of courage. 9/11. People were running out. What were the emergency responders doing? Going in. Next image, please. This is 9/11. That is a real picture of a real firefighter going up the staircase. We do not know what happened to him. Okay? Does he look afraid? He's doing his job. Next image, please. Wow. You know, when I was in the Navy, you called me Chief Arrington. I was a chief of an explosive ordnance disposal detachment. My job was to save lives. We worked at the CIA, the Secret Service, NASA recovering space vehicles. I worked with bomb disposal teams. I got to dive all over a lot of the planet, doing this incredible diving, research and science and stuff. I loved my job, and marijuana took it away from me. It was my fault that marijuana took it away from me. I lost something that I loved, and I knew that I would never be a chief again. What does God give me back in a prison cell? Chief engineer of Inmate Engine Company 52. And I got to leave that prison 17 times driving an emergency vehicle, a full-size fire truck, red light and siren. When other inmates were bored, I was studying my Bible. I was studying firefighting. I was laying out attack plans for all the buildings on our base. I was teaching the guys CPR because I had taught CPR for over 18 years. So I was teaching them CPR. I was teaching them first aid. We were learning about firefighting. We were learning about being a team. And I never knew what we could have gotten. And then we got a call that a plane had crashed in the Mojave Desert 6 miles from our camp. It wasn't from San Bernardino Command. Usually San Bernardino Command calls us. This time we called them because my call came from the control building of the prison. Downed aircraft, Inmate Engine Company, respond. And so I call San Bernardino Command. San Bernardino Command, Inmate Engine 52, responding code 3 to down aircraft. Can you imagine that, what they're expecting? Wait a minute, the inmates are out and we didn't send them? This is trouble. What are you responding to? We got a downed airplane. What kind of airplane? I don't know, but it's big. It's a big fire, and there's an Air Force fighter circling it, so call Edwards Air Force Base and see if they're missing anything big. But the thing of it is we get B-52 bombers out flying out here with ordnance and everything else. We need backup because we're just an inmate fire crew. And so I responded with 4 vehicles, and I hear the call go out over the radio to all these other engine companies from San Bernardino Command saying, 3 alarm, respond to assist Inmate Engine Company 52 for downed aircraft, Mojave Desert, possibly B-52 bomber with ordnance. And the very leading edge of this whole thing was I'm driving a 1965 fire truck I got 4 vehicles and 3 we lose. I lose 3 vehicles because we go off-road. I'm going off-road. I'm talking about leaving the fire break and just full-blown, heading straight for the fire, off-road with a full-size fire truck. I got inmates running on ahead of me to make sure my path is clear because if I stop, I'm stuck in sand. And then suddenly I saw the guy running in front of me. He's running, and suddenly he stops. No, he turned there, but he turns here facing you. You're the truck. And he goes, and I see it. There's a ravine, about a 2 to 3 foot drop. And I just go for it. I went into the ravine. I came out the other. I went really slow in first gear. I had to kick it in to get it first. Went up the other side, and then I saw this ahead of me, a silver capsule. It looked like something out of Star Wars. And it's got parachute shrouds on this capsule and a fire heading straight for it. And I instantly knew what it was. Next image, please. It was 1984. It was the second prototype of the B-1 bomber from Edwards Air Force Base. Crashed 6 miles from the prison camp. The first ones on the scene was my inmate fire crew. Next image, please. What a beautiful plane that was. Next image, please. This is the crew. That whole thing comes out. The whole thing comes out. When we responded, when you're driving a fire truck, any fireman knows you never get downwind of a fire, but you see the fire was coming from this way. The pod had ejected and come down. They were at only 300 feet for you pilots. He was only at 300 feet of altitude transferring fuel, and he stalled the airplane. So it pancaked in. They ejected out as a pod, and then it came down, and they're going downwind. Now the fire's heading for it, and it hit what they think about 18 G-force, the pod, the ejection pod. Killed the pilot. The other 2 were unconscious. And so I take the fire truck, and I right in front of the pod. It's right there. That really motivates firemen, okay, because you got the fire coming right at you. Right there, right in front of that pod. And I have men going in and getting the crew out, and we're just push the fire. And then we had water enough, we started to contain it, push it back. I did not put water on the B-1 bomber because it has exotic metals, and we didn't have foam, and water could cause them to explode. We were the first ones on the scene to save the crew of the B-1 bomber. You know what that did for my heart and soul? Remember, this is about our personal relationship with Jesus Christ. This is what this is all about. When I got out of prison, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was scared to death when I got out of prison. I mean, the Lord gave me back the name chief again, but wow. And now I have to go out, and what am I going to be the chief of? I'm going to go to work for a 7-Eleven. I'm going to be pushing a broom and a mop and a bucket. I'll be chief of that. And I got out of prison, and when I got out of prison, the parole officer, who I went out to meet the next day, said, I want you to go to the College of Oceaneering and apply for a job. I said, the College of Oceaneering? He goes, yeah. I said, wait a minute, that's the most prestigious commercial diving college in the United States. He says, I want you to go there. So I went. And I go in there, and I go to the front desk, and I go see Tom Mix. His name really was Tom Mix, in charge of the staff. And so I go to see him, and I introduce myself as Steve Arrington. I told him I just got out of prison. He spilled coffee. And I said, I'm looking for a job. I said, look, I was an AV diver, and I'm a scuba instructor with NAUI, and I have hyperbaric capabilities and first aid, stuff like that. And he says, no, I'm not looking for anybody. But I want to hear your story. So we sat down for half an hour, and I told him my whole story. And after half an hour, I said, so you looking for anybody? He goes, nope. I said, anybody who might be looking for somebody? He goes, nope. He says, but I really like meeting you. I just want to shake your hand. And as he shook my hand, he put a ring of keys, much bigger than this, in my hand. I go, what is this? He says, it's keys to the college. I said, why are you giving me keys to the college? He says, because you're our newest Corps instructor. I said, I thought you said you weren't hiring. He said, I'm not. Well, didn't you just hire me? He said, yeah, but I decided to hire you yesterday. I said, how could you possibly have decided to hire me yesterday? He says, because the owner upstairs and I have been getting threats from the highway patrol saying that if we don't hire you, we will not be able to go through the desert and not get a ticket. And we've been getting calls from the prison, including somebody called the unit manager and the safety officer saying we should hire you. And so we're hiring you. Next image, please. There he is, arch criminal. There I am, 3 days out of prison. There it is. And they made me also, next image, they made me the school medic. Huh? They said, come on, you know something about drugs, being a drug smuggler. They were teasing. I mean, the fact is I was a medic. And so because I was a medic, 1 year later, something happened. Now, I need to set this up. I had been praying to God that I wanted to talk to kids in churches and schools, okay? Now, here's the problem, is when I went up to principals, you're my principal, okay? You. Yes, what's your name? She slugged him. Why'd you slug him? She hit him. He wasn't, huh? Are you hard of hearing? Can I still use you? Can you hear me enough for us to do this? He's not sure. You're laughing. I'm going to use you. She even pointed at him. You can stay seated. Okay, no, stand up. Go ahead, stand up. I walk into your office. I'm a felon. Okay, I say, sir, look, you're too close. I have to get further. No, you're too close. I'm an inmate. I can't stand that close to you. I'm an inmate. Sir, I just got out of prison a year ago for drugs, and I want to talk to your kids about choices. And by the way, the reason I'm not looking them in the eye is because that's called stink eye in prison. And he's a respected man. I have no respect. I can't look him in the eye. And so I'd like to talk to your kids about choices. What would you say?
I need to know more.
Perfect. Okay, now you can sit. Perfect. Okay, I need to know more. Now, mostly they just said no because I couldn't look you in the eye. And so I'm praying about this. Father, I want to talk to kids. I have good things to share. Help me. Be careful what you pray for. When I say this, realize that God has expectations of us. And what we're expecting and what he's planning are usually two different things. But go for the plan. Okay? It's always a good thing. Go for God's plan. Kid came crashing into my classroom 1 year after I went to work for the college, yelling, Steve, get to the harbor. Or Mr. Arrington, get to the harbor. Chris is drowning. A diver suited up just like this with all this heavy gear had been cheating on a project. Did you kids hear that? He was cheating on a project underwater. He made it unstable, and it fell on him and knocked him down in the water, face dirt, down in the mud, and knocked his helmet off of his head. He is linked with direct communication right through this to here. You can hardly see it. There's two radios here. There's a desk. There's two great big clocks. There's a stopwatch. And in the morning, very first thing, the instructor will come up and show him his watch to the recorder timekeeper. And the recorder timekeeper will write down his time, match his watch to it, and everything that happens is recorded in that log. Every single thing that happens, it goes into that log. That is a legal document, and we have to treat it as so. This kid underwater screamed. The timekeeper recorder heard it. Then he heard him hit the bottom, face down. He didn't know he was face down. He heard the helmet go clunk and come off the head. He heard the gurgling of water fill the helmet, and then just silence. And he wrote down the time. And they jumped the emergency standby diver, and the standby diver got to him, and he couldn't get the pontoon off of the kid. It weighed 300 pounds. So they had to jump two more divers. They had to suit him up and jump the divers. I had to run down from the classroom across the street, and I get there, and he's still underwater. And when they finally got him to the surface, it was over 8.5 minutes. And according to any medical facility you have, more than 4 minutes is brain death. He was over 8.5 minutes underwater. I know he's gone. I reached down as I got him to the surface. I pulled on him. Other hands helped. We got him laying down. He was purple from lack of oxygen and too much CO2. His face was flaccid. His eyes were fixed and staring and glazed over, and water was draining out of his mouth. And I knew he was dead. And my job is to do CPR. And I am praying for all I am worth silently. Father, your breath, not mine. It's never too late for you. Your breath, not mine. We did CPR on him because I was joined by other instructors at this point for 20 minutes. Then the fire department arrived. He's an organ donor, so they're transporting him. And while they're transporting, they're doing the neoepinephrine stuff and everything else is going on. They suddenly get a spontaneous heartbeat and breathing. They get him in the Northridge Hyperbaric Facility up there. His mom comes down. The next night, he's unconscious, as expected, probably in a full coma, when suddenly his eyes flickered open, and he saw his mom, and he asked her what was going on. And he returned to the College of Oceaneering, and he graduated second in his class. They couldn't find anything wrong with him. Next image, please. See how it keeps coming back to the fire department? What are fire departments all about? Life-saving water? Life-saving water? They gave me this for saving the life of the kid. But there's something else that happened. You see, the Red Cross was really excited. One of their instructors for over 18 years had saved the life of a kid who'd been underwater without air for over 8.5 minutes. And so they gave me their biggest award for life-saving. Next image, please. Signed by President. None of this is an accident. My message to you this morning is God wants to be involved in all the details of your life. We give him the big stuff. We give him the tragedies. We give him when we're confused. Give him it all. That's what he wants. He wants all of you. Not part of you. He wants all of you. And as you give him all of you, he is going to bless you. He's going to give you more work. Now I'm going to pick on Ron here for a second, your pastor. Because I get this all the time. People come up to me and they say, Steve, and particularly when I'm shaking hands at the door, they said, you have lived the most amazing life. Wrong. I am living the most amazing life. And he used the was word on me this morning. Okay? I am having miracles all the time. When you come back at 7:30 sharp, and please bring friends because we're going to touch their hearts about our church and about the work of Jesus Christ. We're going to touch them. I'm going to show you kids from Fiji. We've treated over 32,000 people in Fiji with life-saving work and with free dental. I'm going to show you the little kids. I'm going to make it personal for you. You're going to meet the little kids that we've saved their lives. It's just amazing how we do this. Now, a year goes by. I'm on the diving barge. I'm actually teaching the guys how to start a hand crank compressor. I'm teaching them how to teach you without hitting themselves in the head with this great big crank. And the phone rings. And so I go over and I pick up the phone. And on the phone is Don Santee. Don Santee was Jean-Michel Cousteau's chief diver. And he had sat in on my hyperbaric medicine class to catch up. And I said, Don, if you ever need a diver, you give me a call, okay? He said, sure, Steve. What I didn't know is, remember the highway patrolman and other people have been talking to the college about hiring me? Well, Jean-Michel and Captain Cousteau were getting phone calls about me. You see, because you know what I had been doing in that year after I saved the life of that kid, after I was part of saving the life of that kid, is I went back to the principles. Can you stand up again? But now, you see, here's what I'm armed with, is that I now have God who's proved something to me. Is if he could use my breath to mechanically save a life, can I use that same breath to spiritually save a life? And so I went up to the principal. I said, sir, look, I was here before and I didn't talk to you right. I'm an ex-felon. I went to prison and I deserved it. And I've corrected my behavior. And I want to help kids make right choices. Watch what I do. Give me a chance with your kids. And the principal said? Yes. No. They still said no. They said no all the time. All the time they said no. But about 1 out of 20 would say yes. I've now done over 1,700 public school assemblies in 49 states and in 5 countries because it's God's work. Okay, now I'm going around here. I want to stay in Northern California and Central California as much as I can because this is where my kids are at. So I want to have my kid time too. So Plumas County's been bringing me in, and now I'm doing more and more, and I'm going to be stretching into your area. And I'm going to be calling Pastor Ron up and say, hey, Ron, I'm speaking at the public schools here in your town, and what I can't speak about in the public schools, I can't tell them about Jesus Christ, but I can invite them to come to a family program at the Placerville Seventh-day Adventist Church at 7:30 sharp. And they come. You never know how many. Sometimes it's just a few. Once we got the wrestling team, which is very interesting for the church. Okay? The Lord wants to use us in wonderful and incredible ways. For 5.5 years, I went off on an odyssey of adventure of diving with whales and dolphins and sharks. I will share that with you at 5 o'clock. But when Don Santee was on the phone talking to me, he said, Steve, I want you to come to work for us. I need you sooner rather than later, so 2 weeks or less. Get here as fast as you can. And your title will be Chief Diver, Expedition Leader. And so I became chief. The word chief came back to me again. After 5.5 years, I resigned my position with the Cousteau Society. They offered me the CEO position of the Cousteau United States to stay. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that that was the conflict that was put in my path. But I wanted to work with youth. And so I made a commitment that this is what I was going to do, and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is work with kids. There's nothing more rewarding. I'm going to close. I'm going to close with a prayer. I'm going to do something I haven't done before. I feel moved to do it. This is where pastors get nervous. Okay? I haven't done this before. I'm probably going to do it from now on. I'm a warrior. I chose to be a warrior. I did 4 tours in Vietnam. I never got hurt. I never hurt anybody. But I chose to be a warrior. What I chose to be when I left the Cousteau Society was a warrior for kids. I talked to you about suicide. The fastest growing rate of suicide in America today per capita is children 10 to 14 years old. It's children 10 to 14. We are under attack. Satan is going after the children. He's going to use everything he can to get after them. Those kids, the thing about families today is it used to be grandma and grandpa were in the same house or in the same town, and now we're spread out, and more families are divorced than are not, wind up divorced, and so kids are struggling. And so I'm going to make a request of you. I'm going to ask you to become a warrior for the children in this church and for the children in this community. And your mission field is as big as you want to make it. But I'm going to close with prayer right now. And if you're willing to be a warrior for the children, and I don't say this lightly, if you're prepared to be a warrior for children, I want you to stand up for this prayer. And if you stand up for this prayer, we're making a commitment to the children of this church and the children in this community. So those of you who will, stand with me right now, and let's pray. Dear Father, it's such a struggle being a child today. Kids around the world are suffering from not enough food, from fear, from slavery, from war, from everything. In America, we're something special. And somehow, some of that specialness has slipped away. Children are dying. And you need soldiers. So this is your newest team, Father. And we swear that we will make the difference of children. And I ask that each and every one of us be given the chance to do something good for a child or one of your children, God, every single day for the rest of our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.